There is a man I met in the old quarter of Jerusalem who changed everything I thought I knew about money, success, and the invisible laws that govern prosperity. His name was Eliyahu, and he lived in a modest stone house with a view of the ancient walls. Yet every merchant in the city knew him as the one who possessed something more valuable than gold. He possessed the secret of mourning. What I am about to share with you is not my wisdom. It is his. And before he taught it to me, he made me promise that if it worked, if my life transformed as he said it would, I would pass it on to others who were ready to receive it. Tonight, you are those others. Subscribe to Jewish Wisdom now, because what comes next will require you to trust something you cannot see, believe something you cannot prove, and commit to something that will sound absurdly simple for the power it contains. Your subscription is your first act of trust in this journey we are about to take together. Write these words in the comments. I choose transformation over comfort. Let this be your declaration, your covenant with what is about to unfold in your life. I did not go to Jerusalem looking for financial wisdom. I went because I was broken. My business had failed. My savings were gone. My marriage was strained to the breaking point because I had gambled everything on a venture that collapsed. And I had no answer for my wife when she asked the question that haunted me every night. What are we going to do? I had tried everything the success books promised. I had worked harder than everyone around me. I had networked, strategized, and hustled until I was a shell of myself. And still, prosperity eluded me like trying to grab smoke with my bare hands. I met Eliyahu by accident, or what I thought was accident. I was sitting on a bench near the western wall, staring at nothing, when he sat down beside me. He did not look wealthy. His clothes were simple, his appearance unremarkable. But when he spoke, his voice carried a quality I had never heard before. Absolute certainty without arrogance. Profound peace without passivity. He said something that made me turn and look at him. You are fighting a battle that cannot be won through fighting. I do not know why I told him my story. I had learned to keep my failures private, to maintain the appearance that everything was fine even as my world crumbled. But something in his presence made honesty feel safe. I told him about the business, the debt, the desperation, the marriage, the shame. I told him I had come to Jerusalem not for tourism, but for escape, for a few days away from the wreckage of my life, where I could pretend to be someone else. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Come to my house tomorrow morning. Come before the sun rises. I will show you something that has been passed down in my family for 7 generations. It is very simple, but if you do it exactly as I teach you, without changing anything, without skipping days because you think you understand it, your life will not be the same 6 weeks from now. But you must decide tonight whether you are willing. Because this is not information I give. This is transmission. And transmission requires covenant." I did not understand what he meant by transmission or covenant. I only knew that I had nothing left to lose. I took his address, and the next morning, in darkness so complete I could barely see the streets, I found my way to his house. He was already awake, standing at his window, wrapped in a prayer shawl. He did not greet me with words. He simply motioned for me to stand beside him and watch. What happened in the next 18 minutes changed my understanding of reality. Eliyahu did not explain what he was doing. He simply did it, and I watched. He spoke Hebrew words I did not understand. He stood in postures that seemed arbitrary. He was silent when I expected him to speak, and spoke when I expected silence. It made no logical sense. And yet, as I watched him, I felt something shift in the atmosphere of the room, like a door opening in a dimension I had never known existed. When he finished, he turned to me and said, "What you just witnessed is the practice my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather taught to his son, who taught it to his son, who taught it to my grandfather, who taught it to my father, who taught it to me. Every man in my family who has done this practice has prospered. Not because the practice creates money, because it creates alignment. And when you are aligned with the way God designed abundance to flow, money cannot help but come to you. It is law." I asked him why he was willing to teach it to me, a stranger, a Gentile. He smiled and said, "Because you are desperate enough to actually do it. Most people want transformation, but they are not desperate enough to commit to something that requires discipline. Desperation is the doorway to dedication. You have walked through the doorway. Now I can show you what is on the other side." For the next hour, Eliyahu broke down the practice step by step. He explained the meaning behind each Hebrew word, the significance of each posture, the spiritual law activated by each action. He told me stories of his grandfather, who had arrived in Israel with nothing and built a thriving textile business using this practice. He told me about his father, who had survived the concentration camps and rebuilt his life through these same 18 minutes every morning. He told me about himself, how he had faced bankruptcy in his 30s and how this practice had not just restored his finances but had given him something more valuably unshakable peace about provision. When he finished teaching me, he made me practice it in front of him. I stumbled through the Hebrew. I forgot the sequence. I felt ridiculous standing at his window, speaking words I barely understood to a God I was not sure was listening. But Eliyahu was patient. He corrected me gently. He explained again what I did not grasp the first time. And when I completed the entire practice, he placed his hands on my shoulders and said, "You now carry what my family has carried for 7 generations. This is not magic. This is partnership with the divine. Your part is to show up every morning. God's part is to show up with provision. If you keep your part of the covenant, he will keep his. I promise you this on the reputation of my ancestors." I left his house that morning with instructions written on a piece of paper, Hebrew words spelled phonetically so I could pronounce them, and a commitment to practice for 40 days without missing a single morning. Eliyahu told me not to contact him during those 40 days, not to ask if I was doing it right, not to report on whether it was working. He said, "The practice works in silence. Do not speak about it. Do not analyze it. Just do it. And on day 41, come back and tell me what has happened. I want to tell you what happened during those 40 days. But before I do, I need you to understand something crucial. What I am about to teach you is the exact practice Eliyahu taught me. I have not modified it. I have not Americanized it, or made it more comfortable, or shortened it for busy schedules. It is 18 minutes, performed in a specific sequence, with specific Hebrew prayers, in a specific posture. And it requires commitment. Not perfection, but commitment. Not flawless execution, but faithful consistency. If you are looking for a quick fix, this is not it. If you want a prosperity hack that requires no discipline, this is not it. If you expect results without responsibility, this is not it. But if you are desperate enough to try something ancient, simple, and proven by generations of people who moved from poverty to prosperity through this exact practice, then stay with me. Because what comes next will sound too simple to be powerful, and that simplicity will be the very reason most people will dismiss it. But you are not most people. You are here because something in you recognizes that the answers you seek are not in the new and trendy, but in the old and tested. Chapter 2. Day 1 of my 40-day commitment began with resistance so strong I almost did not do it. My alarm went off 18 minutes earlier than usual, and every fiber of my being screamed to turn it off and go back to sleep. The voice in my head was loud. "This is ridiculous. You are a grown man, standing at a window speaking ancient Hebrew prayers. This will not change anything. You are wasting time you do not have." But then I remembered Eliyahu's face, the certainty in his eyes, the peace that radiated from him despite living in a city surrounded by conflict. I remembered my desperation, and I got up. I stood at my hotel window, overlooking the sleeping city of Jerusalem. I unfolded the paper Eliyahu had given me, and I began. The first prayer was called Modayani, and Eliyahu had explained that it must be spoken before my eyes fully opened, before my mind activated its catalog of problems. The Hebrew words felt foreign in my mouth. Modayani lefaneka, milakshe, thikayam, shehishizarta, binishmati buchimla, rabba emunat. I give thanks before you, living and eternal King, for you have mercifully restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. Eliyahu had told me. This prayer establishes your first thought of the day as gratitude, not anxiety. Most people wake up and immediately begin cataloging their problems. You will wake up and catalog your blessings. This single shift rewires your brain over time. Gratitude is the frequency of abundance. Anxiety is the frequency of lack. You cannot vibrate at both frequencies simultaneously. You must choose. So I spoke the prayer, and even though I did not feel particularly grateful that morning, I spoke it anyway. Eliyahu had warned me, do not wait to feel grateful before you speak gratitude. Speak gratitude, and feeling will follow. The next part of the practice required me to take 3 deep breaths. Still at the window, eyes now open, facing east toward the sunrise. Eliyahu had said, the rabbis teach that God renews creation every morning. It is not that he created once, and now the world runs automatically. No, every morning, the same creative power that spoke the first light speaks again. When you breathe consciously at this moment, you are breathing in that creative power. You are inhaling possibility. You are drawing the energy of new beginnings into your lungs, into your blood, into your cells. I breathed 3 slow breaths, and something unexpected happened. On the 3rd breath, I felt a release in my chest, like a fist that had been clenched for months, suddenly opened. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but real. I almost dismissed it as nothing. But I remembered Eliyahu saying, "Pay attention to the small shifts. Transformation never announces itself with trumpets. It whispers. And most people miss it because they are listening for thunder." The 3rd element of the practice was the wealth declaration. And this was the part that made me most uncomfortable. Eliyahu had told me I must speak it 3 times, out loud, with increasing conviction. The words were, "God gives me power to create wealth. My hands are blessed. My mind is anointed with ideas. What I touch prospers. Money flows to me easily, from expected and unexpected sources. I am a conduit of heaven's abundance." The first time I spoke it, my voice was barely a whisper, embarrassed even though no one could hear me. The second time, louder but still uncertain. The 3rd time, Eliyahu had instructed, "Speak it like you are commanding reality to align with truth." I tried. I spoke the words a 3rd time with as much conviction as I could summon, which was not much, but I spoke them. And then came the part Eliyahu called the most important, the commitment to give before receiving. He had said, "Before this day ends, you will be an instrument of blessing to someone. You will give something money, time, encouragement, a meal. You must commit to this before you have earned anything." This demonstrates to the spiritual realm that you understand the law of circulation. You cannot receive with a closed fist. I committed out loud. "Before this day ends, I will give $10 to someone who needs it." $10 was all I could afford. My bank account was nearly empty. But Eliyahu had said the amount did not matter. The commitment mattered. The action mattered. So I committed. The practice continued with what Eliyahu called receiving the day. I stood at the window, hands open at my sides, palms facing forward, and for 3 minutes I simply stood in silence. Eliyahu had explained, "You are not meditating. You are receiving. The morning carries an energy that is fresh, creative, full of potential. Most people are asleep during this energy, and then spend their day trying to generate energy through coffee and willpower. You are receiving energy directly from the source. 3 minutes of receiving is worth 3 hours of striving. 3 minutes of silence is longer than it sounds." My mind wandered constantly. I thought about my failed business. I worried about my wife. I calculated how many days I could survive on my remaining money. But each time my mind wandered, I gently brought my attention back to my breath, to the sensation of standing, to the morning light beginning to illuminate the city. And by the end of 3 minutes, something had softened inside me. The panic that usually started my day had not arrived. There was space where anxiety usually lived. The final component of the practice was what Eliyahu called hitbadut, personal conversation with God. For 4 minutes, no formal prayers, just honest talking. Eliyahu had said, "Tell God everything. Your fears, your doubts, your frustrations, your hopes. And then listen. Not for an audible voice. For an inner knowing, a gentle impression, a sense of peace about a specific action." This is how God speaks most often, not in thunder, but in whispers to those who are quiet enough to hear. I talked to God that first morning like I had never talked before. Not religious language. Not trying to sound spiritual. Just honest. I told him I was terrified. I told him I did not know if this practice was real or if I was fooling myself. I told him I needed help and I did not know where else to turn. And then I was quiet. And in that quiet, something came. Not a voice. Not a vision. Just a thought. Clear and simple. Trust the process. That was all. But it was enough. I finished the practice and began my day. Nothing miraculous happened. No money appeared. No opportunities materialized. It was just a day. Except it was not. Something was different in me, even if nothing was different around me. I felt steadier, less frantic, more present. And that night, I kept my commitment. I saw a street musician playing violin, his case open for donations. I put $10 in his case. He looked up, smiled, and said, "Thank you. You just made my night." And in that moment, I realized the practice was already working. Not because I had received anything, but because I had become someone who gives even when it costs something. Chapter 3, by day 7. The practice had become slightly easier, but not comfortable. I was still resisting the early alarm. I was still skeptical about whether speaking Hebrew words could affect my bank account, but I was committed. And in that commitment, small things were beginning to shift. I noticed I was less reactive during the day. When problems arose, and they arose constantly, did not spiral into panic the way I used to. There was a buffer, a space between stimulus and response, and in that space I was making better decisions. On day 9, something unexpected happened. I was at a cafe, working on my laptop, trying to figure out my next move financially, when a man at the next table struck up a conversation. We talked about nothing important: travel, weather, the best coffee in Jerusalem. But then he asked what I did for work. I told him the truth. I was between ventures, trying to figure out what was next. He gave me his card and said, "I might have something. Send me an email." I almost dismissed it as polite conversation that would lead nowhere, but something inside me said to follow up. So I did. 3 days later, I was sitting in his office learning about a consulting opportunity. It was not my dream job. It would not make me wealthy, but it would provide immediate income, bridge the gap, give me breathing room. And it had come from a random conversation in a cafe on day 9 of my 40-day practice. Coincidence? Maybe. But Eliyahu had told me, when you start this practice, you will notice that coincidences increase dramatically. Doors open that you did not knock on. People appear with solutions to problems you did not tell them you had. This is not magic. This is alignment. When you are aligned, the universe conspires to support you. But most people are so misaligned that they miss the opportunities that come their way. I took the consulting job. It started 2 weeks later. And for the first time in months, I could tell my wife that money was coming, that we would be okay, that there was hope. But here is what struck me. The opportunity came not through my network, not through my efforts, not through anything I did except show up for 18 minutes every morning and commit to giving something every day. The cause and effect seemed disconnected. Yet Eliyahu had warned me about this. He said, "Do not expect linear causation. You do not do the practice and immediately see a result. You do the practice, and it shifts something in the invisible realm. And from that invisible shift, visible manifestations emerge in ways you cannot predict or control." By day 20, the practice had become automatic. My body woke up before my alarm. The Hebrew words came more naturally. The 3 minutes of silence had become the most treasured part of my day. And the Hippodatha, personal conversation with God, had become increasingly two-way. I would speak my concerns, and then in the silence, insights would come. Not answers to all my questions, but peace about taking the next step, even without seeing the entire path. Write this in the comments. I trust invisible progress, because this is what you must learn if you commit to this practice. Most of the work happens where you cannot see it. Seeds germinate underground. Fruit grows on branches, long before it ripens. Your morning practice is planting seeds, strengthening roots, preparing branches. Trust that what you cannot see is more real than what you can see. On day 28, my wife asked me what had changed. She said, "You are different, less stressed, more present." What happened? I had not told her about Eliyahu or the practice, partly because it felt too strange to explain, partly because Eliyahu had told me to practice in silence for the 40 days. But I could not deny what she was seeing. I was different. The practice was changing me, and that internal change was affecting everything around me. The consulting job was going well. I was bringing value to the client. They extended my contract. Money was flowing again, not abundantly, but enough. We were paying bills. The immediate crisis had passed. But more than that, my relationship with money had shifted. I was no longer desperate. I was no longer grasping. I had discovered through the practice that peace about provision is more valuable than provision itself. Because peace allows you to make wise decisions, while desperation makes you vulnerable to foolish ones. On day 35, I had my first significant breakthrough. The client I was consulting for introduced me to another company that needed help. That introduction led to a project 3 times larger than the first. And that larger project led to 2 more referrals. Within a week of day 35, I had more work than I could handle alone. I was not just surviving. I was beginning to thrive. And it had all come through connections I had not orchestrated, opportunities I had not chased, a flow I had simply positioned myself to receive. Eliyahu had told me, the practice does not make you rich through magic, it makes you magnetic. When you are in alignment, you attract what you need. People sense something different about you, even if they cannot name it. Opportunities flow to you because you have become a clear channel rather than a blocked pipe. Your job is not to force the flow. Your job is to remove the blockages through daily practice. On day 40, I woke up and performed the practice with gratitude. I no longer had to force. It was real. The Hebrew words had become prayers, not just phonetic syllables. The 3 minutes of silence had become communion, not just time-filling. The hitbadut had become genuine conversation, not monologue. And when I finished, I knew something profound. This practice would never stop. It was not a 40-day experiment that I would abandon once I got the results I wanted. It had become part of my identity, part of my daily rhythm, part of how I now existed in the world. I went to see Eliyahu on day 41, as he had instructed. He opened his door, looked at me, and smiled before I said a word. "You do not need to tell me what happened," he said. "I can see it in your face. You have become someone different. And that someone different is now living a different life." I told him everything: the consulting job, the expanding opportunities, the restored peace in my marriage, the shift from desperation to confidence. He listened, nodding occasionally. And when I finished, he said, "This is what happens when you align with divine order. But remember, prosperity is not the goal. Alignment is the goal. Prosperity is simply the natural result of alignment. If you ever stop the practice and prosperity continues for a while, you will eventually drift out of alignment and the prosperity will dry up. This is not punishment. This is law. Flow requires alignment. Maintain the practice, and the flow continues. Chapter 4. 5 years have passed since Eliyahu taught me the morning practice. I am writing these words from a very different place than where I was when I sat on that bench near the western wall, broken and desperate. My business has been rebuilt, stronger and more sustainable than before. My marriage has not just survived, but deepened. My relationship with money has been transformed from anxiety to stewardship. And through it all, every single morning, I have done the 18-minute practice. But the real story is not my transformation alone. It is what happened when I began teaching the practice to others. Eliyahu had told me, when the practice transforms you, you will know who is ready to receive it. You will see desperation in their eyes, and you will recognize it because you remember your own. When you see it, teach them. But only teach those who are desperate enough to commit. This is not casual information. This is covenant transmission. I have taught the practice to 17 people over these 5 years. Not hundreds. Not thousands. 17, because I followed Eliyahu's instruction. Only teach those who are truly desperate, who have exhausted their own solutions, who are willing to commit to something that requires discipline, without guaranteed immediate results. And of those 17, 14 have experienced transformations similar to mine. Their stories vary, different circumstances, different challenges, different manifestations of breakthrough, but the pattern is the same. Internal shift followed by external change. Peace preceding prosperity. Alignment attracting opportunity. Let me tell you about Maria. She was a single mother working 3 jobs, drowning in debt, convinced her situation would never change. A mutual friend introduced us, and when I saw the desperation in Maria's eyes, I recognized what Eliyahu had seen in mine 5 years earlier. I told her about the practice. She asked how long it would take to see results. I told her the truth. I do not know. It took me about 2 weeks to see the first small shift. But the practice is not a vending machine where you insert 18 minutes and receive a specific result. The practice is an alignment tool. How long alignment takes depends on how misaligned you currently are. Maria committed to 40 days. The first week, she told me later, was torture. She had to wake up even earlier than her already early schedule. She was exhausted. The Hebrew words felt like gibberish. She cried during several of her hitbadut sessions, pouring out her pain to a God she was not sure was listening. But she kept going. By week 2, her exhaustion had transformed into something else. She described it as wired energy. She was getting less sleep, but feeling more rested. The practice itself was energizing her. In week 3, Maria's financial situation began to shift. One of her 3 jobs offered her more hours at a higher rate. A debt she had been struggling with for years was suddenly eligible for a forgiveness program she had not known existed. A tax refund she had not expected arrived. Small things, but they compounded. By week 6, Maria had been able to quit one of her 3 jobs and still earn more money than she had been earning with all 3. But when I asked her what the biggest change was, she did not mention money. She said, "I am not afraid anymore. Fear has been my constant companion for so long I thought it was part of my personality, but it is gone. I do not know how else to explain it. That is what the practice does. It removes fear, and fear is the biggest blocker of prosperity." Fear makes you grasp instead of receive. Fear makes you hoard instead of circulate. Fear makes you make desperate decisions that compound your problems. When fear is removed, wisdom can operate. And wisdom attracts prosperity far more effectively than hustle or ambition or even intelligence. If this message is resonating with you, if you sense that what I am sharing is not theory but tested truth, then I want to tell you about the Jewish Wisdom ebook. Inside this resource, you will find not just the morning practice I have been teaching you, but the deeper context, the Kabbalistic principles behind it, the Hebrew meanings that activate specific spiritual frequencies, the rabbinic wisdom that has sustained Jewish prosperity for millennia. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. Consider it your graduate-level training in the ancient pathways of abundance. But whether you invest in the ebook or not, I want to answer the question you are probably asking. What exactly are the 18 minutes? What is the specific sequence? I have given you pieces throughout this teaching, but now let me give you the complete protocol, exactly as Eliyahu taught me. Minute 1, 2, Modeh Ani, and conscious breathing before opening your eyes fully. Speak the Modeh Ani prayer. Then take 3 deep, conscious breaths. This establishes gratitude and draws in creative energy. Minute 3 to 5. Wealth declaration. Stand and speak the wealth declaration 3 times with increasing conviction. This programs your subconscious and declares your identity as a conduit of abundance. Minute 6. Commitment to give. Commit to give something specific before the day ends. Name it clearly. This activates the law of circulation. Minute 7 to 9. Receiving posture. Stand at a window, hands open, palms forward, facing east. Receive the energy of the new day in silence. Minute 10 to 11. Ironic blessing. Speak the Ironic blessing over your finances specifically. Declare divine favor over your income, your business, your financial decisions. Minute 12 to 14. Hebrew wealth code. Speak Baruch Ata Adonai, Notain Lanu, Koach Laset She'el, 3 times. Then make one specific financial request and release it. Minute 15 to 18. Hitbadut. Sit and talk to God honestly about your finances, your fears, your dreams. Then listen for gentle guidance. That is the practice. 18 minutes that have changed my life and the lives of 14 others I have taught. Simple, but not easy. Ancient, but not outdated. Proven, but requiring faith. Now I need you to answer a question in the comments. What am I willing to sacrifice for financial breakthrough? Because make no mistake, this practice requires sacrifice. Not money, not possessions, but 18 minutes of sleep, but comfort, but the luxury of rolling through your morning unconsciously. The question is whether breakthrough matters enough to you to sacrifice what is keeping you stuck. Chapter 5. We have walked together through ancient streets, sat at the feet of wisdom, and discovered that the answers we seek are not complicated, but they are costly. They cost discipline. They cost consistency. They cost faith when nothing visible has changed yet. And now we stand at the crossroads, where every person who has heard this teaching must choose. Will I do this? Or will I let it become another piece of inspiring information that changes nothing? Eliyahu told me something on day 41 that I have never forgotten. He said, the difference between those who transform and those who stay stuck is not intelligence or opportunity or even desperation. It is willingness to do something simple consistently, even when results are not immediate. Most people want breakthrough, but they are not willing to do the boring work of showing up every day. They want the harvest without planting seeds. They want the fruit without tending the tree. The morning practice is seed planting. Most people quit before harvest because they cannot see what is growing underground. You now have the complete practice. You have the Hebrew prayers, the specific sequence, the spiritual principles behind each component. You have testimonies of real people whose lives have been transformed. You have my story, Maria's story, the story of Eliyahu's family across 7 generations. What you do with this information will determine whether your life 5 years from now is different from your life today. I want to give you a 40-day challenge. Starting tomorrow morning, commit to the 18-minute practice every single day for 40 days. Do not skip a day. Do not modify the practice. Do not decide you know better and create your own version. Follow the protocol exactly as I have laid it out. And on day 41, assess what has changed. Not just in your bank account, though that might have changed, but in your peace, in your clarity, in your decision-making, in your relationships, in your sense of divine connection. These internal changes are the real wealth that attracts external prosperity. But I must warn you, resistance will come. On day 3, you will want to quit. On day 7, You will question whether it is working. On day 14, when you do not see dramatic results, you will be tempted to give up. This is normal. This is your old patterns fighting for survival. Every habit you have ever formed, good or bad, exists in neural pathways in your brain. When you establish a new habit, you are creating new neural pathways, while the old pathways scream for attention. The old pathways are louder at first, but if you persist, the new pathways strengthen and the old ones weaken. By day 40, the new pathways are dominant. The practice has become natural. Let me address the spiritual mechanics one final time, because understanding why something works strengthens your commitment to doing it. The morning practice operates on 3 levels simultaneously: neurological, spiritual, and quantum. Neurologically, it rewires your brain from scarcity to abundance through repetition of gratitude and wealth declarations. Spiritually, it opens channels between heaven and earth through ancient Hebrew prayers that carry accumulated power from millennia of use. Quantum mechanically, it focuses your consciousness on abundance, which collapses probability waves into outcomes that favor prosperity. You do not need to understand all 3 levels for the practice to work, but understanding helps you trust the process when visible results lag behind invisible progress. Seeds work underground before sprouts appear above ground. Your morning practice is underground work. Trust it even when you cannot see it. The final element I want to give you is maintenance. Once you complete your 40 days and experience breakthrough, do not stop. Eliyahu told me, the practice is not a temporary tool. It is a lifestyle. Just as you would not brush your teeth for 40 days and then never again, do not practice alignment for 40 days and then abandon it. The moment you stop aligning, you begin drifting. And drift always leads back to where you started. I have not missed the practice in 5 years. Not when I was traveling. Not when I was sick. Not when I was celebrating success. Every morning, 18 minutes, the same sequence, the same covenant. And every year, my life has expanded in ways I could not have imagined when I sat broken on that bench in Jerusalem. But the expansion is not the goal. Alignment is the goal. The expansion is simply what happens when you maintain alignment. There is a teaching in the Talmud that says the world rests on 3 pillars: Torah, service, and acts of loving kindness. What the rabbis understood is that stability requires consistent practice across multiple dimensions. You cannot have financial stability through occasional effort. You cannot have spiritual stability through sporadic prayer. You cannot have relational stability through intermittent attention. Stability is built through daily practice of core disciplines. The 18-minute morning practice is one of those core disciplines. Let this be your closing declaration, spoken out loud as we finish. I commit to 40 days of the morning practice. I will not skip. I will not modify. I will not quit when results are not immediate. I trust that alignment precedes abundance. That internal change creates external transformation. That ancient wisdom still works in modern life. I am ready. I begin tomorrow. So be it. Now, share this message with someone who needs it. Not everyone, not randomly, but someone specific who comes to mind. Someone whose eyes carried the same desperation yours might have carried before you found this teaching. Prosperity multiplies when shared. Blessing increases when circulated. Be the conduit through which this wisdom flows to the next person who is ready to receive it. And remember, when breakthrough comes, and it will come, remember this moment. Remember that transformation began not with luck or perfect timing, but with a decision to wake up 18 minutes earlier and align with ancient pathways. Remember that prosperity flowed not because you manipulated anything, but because you positioned yourself in the flow of divine abundance. Remember that the change happened through the discipline of consistent practice, one morning at a time, for 40 days until the practice became part of your identity. The God who restored my soul every morning for 5 years will restore yours. The God who opened doors I did not knock on will open yours. The God who transformed my desperation into confidence will transform yours. But you must do your part. You must show up. You must commit. You must trust when nothing visible has changed, that everything invisible is shifting. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off 18 minutes earlier than usual, you will have a choice. You can hit snooze and continue living the life you have been living, or you can get up and begin living the life you were designed to live. The practice is simple. The commitment is challenging. The results are transformational. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you with favor. May he lift his countenance upon you and give you peace and prosperity, and wisdom, and the strength to walk this path with faithfulness. May your mornings become sacred. May your days become fruitful. May your finances reflect the generosity of a God who holds nothing back from those who seek Him first. Begin tomorrow. Walk the 40 days. Trust the ancient pathways, and witness what happens when human faithfulness meets divine faithfulness in the sacred space of 18 morning minutes. Amen and amen.